Hello. Uh, we have talked about intercultural communication a little bit. Little bit of introduction has been given to you about intercultural communication. Today we will continue with the theories that were introduced to you that I mentioned in the last class, and today we will discuss those theories exclusively and their applications to international business. The one thing I must mention here is that these theories are value based theories, and I want you to keep thinking about the applications of these theories as we go along, and we'll discuss them in the next class. But throughout this class I would like you to focus on how these theories relate to your daily lives. So let's begin with a little bit of revision. We talked about intercultural communication. We talked about the significance of intercultural communication. We discussed Samovar and Porter's definition of intercultural communication or culture. We discussed what culture meant, what intercultural meant, what intercultural communication meant. We also discussed what makes us different from each other. And one thing that I must remind you again is that when we talk about culture, we are not talking exclusively about geographical boundaries. We are not talking exclusively about community. We are talking about whatever makes us who we are. And so I would like you to go back to that slide in the previous lecture where we talked about how we are different from each other. We talked about some ideological differences. Again, as a reminder, these differences are, when we say ideological differences, these are differences in the way we think, in the way our thoughts, our value systems influence our behavior. We talked about cultural identity and intercultural competence, and we also talked about culture clash. Okay. The cultural frameworks that we will discuss today are the one by Hofstede, Schwartz, Trompenaars, the Globe study, the studies on institutional distance by Shu et al. And Gore et al., or Shu and Associates and Gore and Associates. Now let's begin with Hofstede, and before I do that, let me just inform you where all of these are coming from. Professor Edward T. Hall had discussed the idea about high and low context cultures, and these discussions are based on cultural values, and cultural values represent, according to, this is from a paper by Professor Schwartz that I am reading from, and according to Professor Schwartz, cultural values represent the implicitly or explicitly shared abstract ideas about what is good, right and desirable in a society, and these cultural values are the basis for the specific norms that tell people what is appropriate in various situations. Now again, to clarify, these are the things that help us decide between right and wrong, good and bad, appropriate and inappropriate, what fits in, what doesn't, where should I go, how should I react to particular situations, and these are rooted in anthropological discussions. These are rooted in experiences that communities have had over the years, and these could be a factor of depend or influenced by the access of communities to resources. These could be influenced by the things that you could relate them to, all these values and ideologies to some extent to Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest. Also at some point, I know there are lots of criticisms of that theory, but at some stage, it is how people learned to live and survive and function and decide on what was effective within their resources with the people who shared the same space with them, either mentally or physically, and these are the things that helped people come up with their own designs or come up with their own parameters for deciding what people who thought like them could do. And as mentioned earlier, according to the definition by Porter and Samovar, culture is a product of all of these issues, values, ideas, beliefs, etc., acquired over generations by people who have shared some sort of common space, either physically or by way of what they do or how they think. So these are the values that decide how we function in different societies, and these values have been categorized by these 5 researchers that are mentioned here, which is or by these 5 broad studies that are mentioned here. It's not to say that the other studies don't apply here, but I thought that these studies were the most applicable, and this is based on a paper by Magnuson and Associates that was published in 2008. So let's start with the study by Hofstede. And before we begin that, let me also give you the basis for these cultural frameworks. Now, Edward T. Hall came up with the notions of high and low context cultures. These things also led people to think that there was some sort of, emotional involvement or detachment. The anthropologists, of course, the studies conducted by anthropologists in the past led future anthropologists to believe that there was some sort of emotional distance, emotional detachment that was going on, that was in turn influencing the manner in which people related to their communities, related to their groups, related to the people they functioned with. And one of these things was the psychic distance. By psychic distance, we are not talking about a 4th dimension. Excuse me. We are not talking about a another dimension or a paranormal activity. We are only talking about the emotional distance that people have, or the emotional attachment or detachment they have with respect to certain events and activities in their lives and certain people in their lives. And according to Johansson and Balin, 1977, cited in Magnuson and Associates, 2008, psychic distance is the sum of factors preventing the flow of information from and to the market. So the amount of emotional involvement we have, or the amount of emotional detachment we have from the market or from our associates in the market, will determine how the information flows. And this could be differences in language, whether we are interacting with people who speak a different language than we speak, education levels. I mean, are we interacting with somebody who is very, very highly educated or much more educated than we are, or less educated than we are? So that could increase the distance. The difference in business practices could be another factor. Industrial development, well developed, very techno savvy versus absolutely not interested in technology or not comfortable with technology, and culture. And one movie that I can suggest to you here is a movie called The Efficiency Expert. It's also known by another name, and the name is Spotswood. And the lead actor is Anthony Hopkins, and it is about a hotshot executive who goes somewhere to a small place in rural America, and tries to transform or redesign the functioning of a moccasin factory in rural America. And it's about his experiences and all that. I mean, it's a fictional account. It is a regular Hollywood movie, but it's a wonderful movie. I discovered it accidentally in the library once, and I feel that it is an excellent movie for anyone who wants to know more about the difference between the theoretical and practical aspects of business. We teach you theories, and those theories are very relevant, but as a student of business, the onus of adapting those theories to practical situations that are very, very unique to each of you who is listening lies on you. So you are the one who has to decide how to apply this theory, or how to take this broad spectrum of knowledge and tweak it, or what to take from this broad idea that has been given to you and apply it to real life situations. So psychic distance is something that is exhibited very well in this movie called Spotswood, SPOTSWOOD, or the other name for this movie is The Efficiency Expert, and the lead actor is Anthony Hopkins of the Silence of the Lambs fame. So excellent actor, but you'll probably enjoy it. Okay, basis of cultural frameworks. One more basis of cultural frameworks that have been proposed by all of these theorists is the power distance, and power distance is the extent and acceptance of unequal distribution of power. Power distance really means how well you accept a vertical organization. One, do you accept a vertical organization? If yes, how comfortable are you with it? Would you feel very comfortable walking into your boss's office and speaking your mind, or would you prefer to follow protocol even for the smallest of things? And both vertical and horizontal organizations have their advantages and disadvantages. In teams where the deadline is more important, in teams where finishing a task is more important than making people around you comfortable, or than the overall environment of the it's a relative term. So, I am not saying that the overall environment of your workplace is not important. I am just saying that it is more important to finish the goal that you have embarked upon. And in such teams, maybe it would be better to have a flatter organization, and that is what really happens. You are all there because of your unique skill sets. You are there because you have something exclusive to offer to the team, something exclusive, something very special that the team can use to achieve that goal. In a vertical organization, the power is distributed in a vertical fashion. You know, it is that it's like this inverted triangle where maximum power is on the top and the power is less and the work is more at the bottom. It's not the work, I mean the actual input or decision making capacity is less at the bottom. The power is less at the bottom, the power is centered at the top, and there are very clear boundaries about regarding the amount of power each functionary of the organization has. So, things aren't as flexible, and that has its own benefits, and one of the benefits that immediately comes to mind is the transparency in the organization, and much more than the transparency, it is the accountability of everybody in the organization. You know exactly what you are supposed to do, you know exactly what you are allowed to do. So, you know, you are accountable for a certain set of things, and it's very easily to straight away get to the person and ask them, you know, whether this power was used or not, and that's just one of the benefits. There are other benefits of vertical organizations. They are very, very useful in extremely complex societies like India, and especially like rural India. Now, parts of India are slowly moving to the flatter organizations, but again, you know, these things vary. The other thing here is, I mean, one more thing to remember in power distance is, do you accept this? Okay. So, different societies have different takes on whether they accept this power distance or not. Some people may feel uncomfortable with it, some people function best when they have that power distance, when they know exactly where everybody stands in terms of what he or she can do or is allowed to do. Okay. So, and some people don't really feel very comfortable. So, this is how people are different, and that has an impact on the culture the organization adopts. The next thing here is institutional distance, and Kostova in 1996 refers to this as the sum of differences on the three pillars of organizations, the regulative, normative and cognitive environments, and we will discuss these a little later. Let us discuss Hofstede's study. Excuse me. Hofstede conducted a study on 117,000 IBM workers, or for the Indian students it is 1,17,000 IBM workers. 100,000 equals 1 lakh for the Western students who are listening to this. So, we have a term LAC or LAKH, and that is how we read this. The study was conducted between 1967 to 1973. Initially, in the first round of the study, 40 countries were targeted, and the final study included 82 countries. Okay. Again, these concepts, the brief description of these concepts has been borrowed from the paper written by Magnuson and Associates in the year 2008. Even though this information is freely available on the internet, and I am sure there is some website called hofstede.org or something like that, which clearly, which deals with a lot of things. But anyway, I found this to be quite useful, so I thought I would put it here. Individualism and collectivism. That is the first thing that Hofstede found people to be different on. First value that Hofstede thought people were clearly decided, which side of the continuum they wanted to be on. Individualism is not selfishness. Individualism is the desire or the belief that if I do my work right, if I am okay, and if every individual unit in society is doing whatever they are supposed to do to the best of their abilities, the overall environment will do better, because everybody is putting in their best and not really showing their negative side, or not really they are just performing to their maximum capacity. So, you are emphasized over the group. If my group is not doing so well, or if I as an individual can contribute more than the average of the group will also rise. So, that is individualism. Now, collectivism is that I am part of a group. I am a part of the environment that I am in, and if I do my work well, and if I remain in harmony with the environment, we will share our resources and we will grow. So, the group, the team, the collective becomes more important there. If I have to sacrifice some personal benefits, then in the interest of the group, I will do that, because ultimately it is the group that is going to look after me. Okay. The second thing that Hofstede's study found was very clear clearly categorized people into different categories, was the power distance, which is something we discussed a few minutes ago, and this is the extent and acceptance of unequal distribution of power. So, we assume that power is distributed unequally, and we have justified reasons, or we have justifications for believing that it is okay if power is distributed unequally, and we accept these justifications, and it is there, we see it, we believe in it, we trust it, and that happens in some societies. In other societies, people feel that everything should be similar, they're not really similar, but it should be proportionate to your abilities, to your immediate contribution to the environment. So, you should only get what you have earned, and not really be promoted just because you are next in line for promotion, but promoted because you have something to show and stuff like that. Or you sort of do what you are best at. You shouldn't be given higher power because you have just grown, you have spent a certain number of years in the organization, and a person who cannot contribute as much as you should be allowed to interact with you and should be given the same status, because the person is making a significant contribution, even though in some manner it may be quantifiably less than yours. So that is the power distance. Uncertainty avoidance is the extent to which people are comfortable or uncomfortable dealing with the unknown. Now, in some societies, people are always prepared, and it doesn't have to be national. Please don't start thinking about nationalities, which country is more, which country is less. No, even amongst us, the armed forces in any country are always prepared. So, you know, they know that they're, and I'm sorry if this is a cruder example, and if some senior professor is listening, if they think that this may not really apply, I apologize for that. But anyway, I seriously feel that this can be linked, because the armed forces are of any country are, this is one profession where risk is expected. It's part of the job. So you have to be prepared at all times. You don't know what is coming when. And so, you know, they are not trying to avoid uncertainty. They have taken all precautionary measures to deal with uncertainty as and when it comes. Now, in some societies, people feel that we should do everything to avoid uncertainty. We should plan for the future, we should forego instant gratification in the interest of the future. We should not take risks, we should take very calculated risks, if any, even though it means less achievement. So that is really what this is dealing with. We are just not comfortable dealing with the unknown, so we will only approach what is known to us. You know, we will only accept what is known to us, and if something unknown comes, God help us. So it's not that bad, but it's the way people think, and you know, they have a different, that in turn influences the way they do their business, that in turn influences how they deal with people in the environment, that influences what you know, the manner in which they communicate with their peers and co-workers. So that is this. Masculinity and femininity. This is the extent of emphasis on competitiveness, assertiveness, achievement and money, the traits that are thought essentially to be masculine. And you know, they are very strict notions. People feel that in some societies there are very strict distinctions between what is masculine and what is feminine. Assertiveness, competitiveness, achievement, money are supposed to be, traditionally supposed to be, the domains of men. And in some societies, women are being accepted, women with these traits are accepted very naturally. In other societies, these are traits that are not yet being accepted, and I don't know what is right and what is wrong, because you know, these societies that feel that these are exclusive traits of men also have very clear roles defined for both the genders. So it simplifies or organizes the society because the division of labor is very, very clear, and that again has its own benefits. So I am not saying, you know, I am not classifying things into good or bad, better or worse. I am just telling you how societies can be different. Excuse me. The other thing that Hofstede's study discovered was long-term orientation, and this was added later after more countries were explored and more thought went into the study. And this was the extent of emphasis on thrift and perseverance. Do we save money? Do we save our resources in the interest of the future? Or do we blow it all up? Do we use it all up? Because today is what matters and future will bring what it will bring. So this is another thing that societies are very, very clearly different on. And in some societies, instant gratification is encouraged. You're encouraged to live life to its fullest. So, you know, there's a Hindi song that goes like, "Sochna kya, jo bhi hoga dekha jayega," which is, you know, why do you need to think? For people who do not understand Hindi, you don't need to think. Whatever will happen will happen. There's an English song, que sera sera, whatever will be will be. The future is not ours to see. So you know, you live life today and then tomorrow is tomorrow, and but in other societies you plan for the future, you persevere, you store resources, and you save for a rainy day, because it can come at some point. If it doesn't, then when you're old and you know you can use up the money for your medical bills, you use it. But no, I'm just joking, but it's just that you sort of save and spend a little more wisely than you would in other societies. So that is something that societies usually emphasize on or differ on. They can be put into different categories. The other study that is very, very relevant is the study by Professor Shalom Schwartz, and his study was conducted between 1985 and 2005. I've got this information from this website where I found a presentation by Professor Schwartz, and you can go to this and you can see the presentation yourself. The study was conducted on 43,135 people belonging to 76 cultural groups living in 74 different countries. So you can see that all of these studies have explored a whole lot of information and then come up with these categories. Okay, according to Professor Schwartz's study, there are 7 broad issues or 7 broad cultural values that distinguish people, that make people different from each other, and or that people, you know, 7 broad categories that people's beliefs fall into. And the first one here is conservationism. Conservationism is the extent to which the status quo is emphasized, and this means that this is essentially the and I'm reading from Professor Schwartz's paper. It is a cultural emphasis on maintenance of status quo, propriety, and restraint of actions or inclinations that might disrupt the solidary group or the traditional order, which is social order, respect for tradition, family security, or wisdom. And he says that the opposite pole of this dimension describes cultures in which the person is viewed as an autonomous, bounded entity who finds meaning in his or her uniqueness, who seeks to express his or her own internal attributes, which includes preferences, traits, feelings, and motives, and is encouraged to do so. Putting it very simply, this is very, very closely linked to Hofstede's division of individualism versus collectivism. When we say conservationism, we are, of course, it's not the same, but it is linked. Conservationism is, we will keep things as they are. You know, there are reasons for why things have been the way they are, and we see no reason to change them. And the opposite of this is that in some societies people focus more on the individual creativity, uniqueness of individuals, and how this uniqueness changes the social order, changes the social environment, changes the manner in which we respond to our environment, and in turn the manner in which the environment responds to us. So essentially we are looking at the dynamic or non-dynamic nature, or the speed at which of the environment, or the speed at which the changes occur in our environments because of our individual actions. So that is conservationism. So some societies emphasize the fact that the community should move as a whole. If there is a change, it should happen because the community as a whole needs it to happen, and that will be very, very slow. The other societies believe that individuals are unique, they bring with them individual unique traits, attributes, everything. So if they change, well, they will change, and it's fine to let them change because the environment is dynamic. All right, intellectual autonomy. Intellectual autonomy is the extent of emphasis on curiosity, creativity, and independent intellectual ideas, which is in certain societies individuals are given the freedom to think, to be curious, to be creative, to develop individual intellectual ideas. In other societies, they are convinced, or individuals are considered a part of the system. So, whatever they say should contribute to the overall benefit or overall growth or overall welfare of the environment that they are a part of. That is intellectual autonomy. Affective autonomy is the extent of emphasis on affective stimulation and hedonism. Now, again, I will read from Professor Schwartz's paper. According to Professor Schwartz, intellectual autonomy is a cultural emphasis on the desirability of individuals independently pursuing their own ideas and intellectual directions. Affective autonomy is a cultural emphasis on the desirability of individuals independently pursuing affectively positive experience, which is pleasure, exciting life, varied life. So, you are free to do as you please. You know, if you have affective autonomy, your definition of pleasure or excitement or variety could differ from the person next door, and that is perfectly all right. You are free to choose. In other societies, these things are, you know, again, as I mentioned earlier, these are the notions of what is right, what is appropriate, what you should and should not do. This will in turn have an impact on the manner in which you conduct your business, and that's how it is relevant. It will in turn have an impact on how the people who use your product respond to you as customers. So, it has a direct impact on the marketing strategies you use, the diffusion of newer ideas, new products into the market, on the organizational structure, on the entire spread of your organization, of your product, of your service, the entire gamut of activities associated with the people who are ultimately going to make you the business person or tycoon that you want to become. So, these things will will affect how things are considered acceptable, how people respond to you, and so on. Okay. The third thing here, or the fourth thing here, is hierarchy. Very similar to power distance, builds on power distance. Society's acceptance of unequal distribution of power. I won't repeat this. Mastery is the society's desire to control its own environment, and I will again refer to Professor Schwartz's paper, and this is really, you know, this paper, I will give you the reference. I'll show you this paper towards the end of the presentation. According to Professor Schwartz, the mastery is a cultural emphasis on getting ahead through active self-assertion, which is ambition, success, daring and competence. An opposing resolution of this issue is to accept the world as it is, trying to fit in rather than to change or exploit it. So, by mastery we mean, again, it is linked to individuals or communities, or the dynamism of communities or individuals in the community. This is as I see it, and I am sorry, Professor Schwartz, if I am misinterpreting this, but from whatever I have read, it seems that mastery is sort of the converse to conservationism. Conservationism is we are okay the way we are, you know, we will just let things be. Mastery is no way. We have to get ahead, we have to change, we have to be more efficient, we have to do things differently, we have to sort of push our way through and control our environment rather than let the environment control us. Egalitarian commitment is the desire to forfeit selfish interests in favor of the group, and this is really again I am going to keep referring to Professor Schwartz's paper here, and egalitarianism is a cultural emphasis on the transcendence of selfish interests in favor of voluntary commitment to promoting the welfare of others, and this includes equality, social justice, freedom, responsibility and honesty. And this is essentially, just to explain it in simple words, this is really the desire to forego your own interests the desire to forego your own needs and desires in favor of the in the larger good of the community. So again, as it is mentioned here, it is the desire to forfeit selfish interests in favor of the group. Harmony is the ability to harmonize with nature, and again, according to Professor Schwartz, it is a cultural emphasis on fitting harmoniously into the environment. It includes unity with nature, protecting the environment and the world of beauty, aesthetics and stuff like that. So, nature is not a resource, it is a living friend, and I am part of that life that exists around me, and I am contributing to it. And if I am okay, and if I am looking after my environment will look after me, and we are sort of coexisting and helping each other. We are in a symbiotic relationship with each other, and we are growing together. Okay. The third study that we will refer to is the study by Trompenaars, and this was conducted between the 1980s and 1990s. It was conducted on managers in 54 countries. According to this study, you will see a lot of things coming up again and again. You know, some of these things are based on Hofstede, some of these things are based on Professor Hall's ideas, some of these things are coming from Professor Schwartz's ideas, but they are all sort of connected. Some of the concepts in the study by Trompenaars are universalism and particularism, which means does a universal set of rules always apply, or can cases be dealt with on an individual basis? Do we need to have one set of rules for everybody, or do we need to give due consideration to people with different kinds of needs? And you know, it's not like people with special needs, one rule applies to all people with special needs. No. By needs, we don't mean physical needs, we mean emotional needs, we mean values, we mean different ideas. So, that is particularism. We are focusing on particular individuals. When we say universalism, we are really saying that all of us are human beings. We all have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 nose, 1 mouth, 2 hands, 2 feet, and somewhat similar quantifiable energy levels and quantifiable intellectual levels and quantifiable skill levels. And since we can quantify all of these things, we just measure our contributions to our environment, and we get rewards, or we are treated according to the quantifiable contributions we make to our environments. Particularism typically deals with the qualitative contributions we make to our environments, and they cannot be measured, they are just considered similar. So, you know, we sort of give due consideration to similarity rather than equality. Okay. Individualism and communitarianism is very similar to the notion of individualism versus collectivism as expressed by Hofstede. So, I am not going to repeat this. This is the society's emphasis on the individual or the community. Who's more important, or how does the community progress? Is it individual achievements, or is it the achievements that are made or work that is done collectively? So, but it is very closely linked to that. Neutral or emotional. So, these are the amount of feelings that are deemed acceptable to display publicly. Do we really need to go out and open our hearts up to somebody, or do we keep our feelings under check, and do we, this is, you know, this is very closely, this refers to the notion of personal bubbles. How tight are our bubbles? How tight are our personal spaces? Do we have pores in them? Do we have openings in our personal spaces, or do we let people into our very personal areas? Achievement versus ascription, specific versus diffuse. Specific versus diffuse is, again, you know, this is the really the notion of the personal space that we have. As I showed you last time, you know, we have, some of us have boundaries that are porous. So, everybody's business is everybody's business. Our feelings, our lives are being diffused into the lives of the others who are present in our environments, as opposed to our boundaries being very, very tight and people not knowing what is going on, really going on in our lives. We are all sharing only what we want to share. So my business is my business, you mind your own business types. So but in some other cultures, everybody's business is everybody's business, and it's fine. And just this morning, to give you an example, just this morning somebody was asking me, okay, where are you from and where did you grow up? And so we have a similar last name here in this part of the country also. And then he asked me, okay, so where is your husband? And I said, I'm not married. And he's like, oh, okay. But it's considered appropriate. Like, he's like, where is your husband from? And I said, don't have one. So it's fine. But in other countries, it may not be considered, or in other cultures, it may not be considered very appropriate for people to ask that kind of question. So here it's fine. And as I mentioned in the last lecture, somebody once asked me whether, how much money I made, and I don't like it, but if I say, well, mind your own business, my family is not going to like it. So I evaded the question somehow. But one tactic I use when I really want to sort of, tell people not to interfere in my life, I very simply say, okay, how is this information going to help you? And that pretty much gives them the idea that I do not want to be asked a specific question. But again, we have our own boundaries. The point I am trying to make here is that we have our own boundaries, and we allow the entry into those boundaries only to a certain group of people. In some places, the number of people entering our personal spaces is less, in other places it's more. Okay, achievement versus ascription. And this is the extent to which certain members of society are given a higher status. And here we are essentially talking about doing versus being. So I am what the values passed down in my family made me. And to know the kinds of values I have been exposed to, people need to know what my grandparents did, if I can still remember them. But here in India, because of the Indo-Pak partition, many families were affected. My family was one of them. So, people have lost touch, people have lost loved ones. So people just go back as far as your grandparents and then they stop. But if you mention your great-grandparents and your grandparents and your aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters and parents and everybody and their level of education, it's considered to have played a part in your upbringing and a part in who you have become today. So if my grandparents made some contribution to the society, then I am supposed to make similar contributions. I am expected to make similar contributions. By the same token, if they enjoyed a very good reputation among their colleagues in their community, I just have to mention my grandparents' names and people look at me in a different light. And that's fine. We have our own sort of advantages and disadvantages of the way we live. So in addition to that, what I do and the level of achievement I have in my life is also linked to the achievements of my family members or my ancestors. And they are like, okay, you are from such and such family, and so and so and so and so have been doing so well, so you are also expected to do so well. So, or these people were average, you performed better, so the status of your entire family and the next 4 or 5 generations goes up because you've done something exceptional. So it acts as a motivator also. Anyway, but these are the areas on which people's societies differ from one another. The other thing here is attitude towards time. How members of a society view the past, present and future. Is the past going to have an impact on the manner in which I do things today? Have I learned things from the past? How do I view the past? Is it an integral part of my life, or past is something that should be buried? Good or bad, past is past. So this is again connected to ascription and stuff like that. In addition to that, we have, what do we feel? How do I view the future? So how do I view the present? So that will be our attitude towards time. The attitude towards the environment is again linked to the notion of harmony expressed by Schwartz in his studies, Do we have an urge and ability to control nature, or does nature control us? So, we have these, societies believe in these things differently because of the different kinds of experiences they have had. Okay, the GLOBE study. GLOBE here stands for Global Leadership and Organizational Behavior Effectiveness, and this study was conducted by Professor Robert J. House at the Wharton School of Business. Excuse me. It was inspired by Hofstede's work. It was begun in 1991 and it covered 17,300 middle managers in 951 organizations in 62 societal cultures. The concepts arising out of this study are uncertainty avoidance, which is the extent to which uncertainty is avoided by relying on established social norms. We discussed this a little while ago. We follow some rules, uncertainty is avoided. We will keep on following these rules because we don't want to take risks, because the risks could be disastrous for our environment. So, we want to maintain status quo in our environment, similar to conservationism, as discussed by Professor Schwartz. Power distance, again this has been discussed in the previous slides. Institutional collectivism. Institutional collectivism refers to the degree the collective distribution of resources is rewarded. Do we emphasize upon the collective distribution of resources, or do we focus on individuals having different kinds of resources? You earn what you earn because of your own efforts, and whether you're contributing to society or not, it doesn't make a difference. If you contribute to your society, it has to go on your resume. So, you don't do things just because they should benefit your society, but those things go on your resume. So, that is the individual rewarding of resources, of contributions. And in other societies, in places like India and traditional societies, we say that if you give with one hand, the other hand should not come to know. So, if I contribute to my environment and I sort of help it grow, or if I make it more comfortable, if I really want to do things sincerely, something sincerely, I should not even acknowledge it myself. And we assume that everybody is contributing to the society for the society's greater good, and that is institutional collectivism. So, we are collectively contributing whatever we can to our environments, and we are helping the environment grow, and we are being acknowledged as sincere members of our environments. And in-group collectivism is the degree to which individuals express pride, loyalty and cohesiveness in society. Do I consider myself a part of a smaller group within my community? Do I wear my affiliation with that group with a sense of pride? Do I express loyalty to my group? Am I on my own? So, these things are also connected to individualism or collectivism. And this is termed collectivism. So, it could be institutional or in group. So, you're sort of part of that group. Gender egalitarianism is the degree to which the society minimizes gender role differences, and this is essentially the non-acceptability of different genders, of people from different genders contributing similarly to the environments. We say, if you are contributing something, it will be quantified, and once it's quantified, we'll just sort of measure it. So, some societies say that, the others say, okay, well, you know what, men and women are different, they make different contributions, and you cannot really draw a comparison between oranges and apples. So, in some societies, gender role differences are minimized. You say, okay, you're a human being, so and so is a human being, similar weight, similar height, similar energy levels, you do this, and you will get what you want. In the other societies, the differences are taken into account while evaluating our contributions. Assertiveness is the degree to which individuals are assertive, confrontational and aggressive in social relationships. Some societies encourage aggressiveness, some societies encourage affect, which is the display of emotions. Other societies do not accept the display of emotions or assertion or assertiveness or confrontation and aggression in social relationships. Future orientation is the degree to which the society engages in future planning, investing and delaying gratification. This is very closely linked to the long-term orientation as expressed by Hofstede. So, what are we really focusing on? Are we focusing on the long-term goals, or are we trying to enjoy life as it comes and sort of taking it from there? Performance orientation is the degree to which individuals are rewarded for performance improvements. Again, this is one thing that we sort of differ on as societies. In some cultures, in some societies, improvement in performance is something that is expected. In other cultures, every small improvement in your performance is rewarded. So, we vary, or we differ on this. Humane orientation is again the degree to which individuals are rewarded for being fair, altruistic, friendly and kind. I mean, and again these rewards could be subjective. So, is it considered a something that you really are expected to do, or are you given special positive reinforcements for exhibiting these positively humane traits? Now, as far as today's lecture is concerned, we are running a little bit behind because I just got into these explanations. So, what we will do is I will leave you with some food for thought, and we will finish the institutional distance studies in the next class. And what I want you to do today is find out how the theories proposed by Hofstede, Schwartz, Trompenaars and the globe study relate to your specific environments. I want you to think about the similarities in these studies, and I want you to find out how they differ and also how these concepts relate to your specific environments and help you in understanding your specific environments better. And then we will take it from there in the next class. Thank you.